Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Kelly with Kell Advising and sitting in for Matt today to facilitate this conversation with Nina Sabarre. I know and work with Nina well. Dr. Sabarre is the founder and CEO of Intention to Impact, social impact consulting firm that uses research, evaluation, and strategy to measure and maximize impact for clients. She's passionate about gender, racial, and social equity and using evalpreneurship to dismantle the status quo. She's consulted for a wide variety of press sector institutions, from Earth Justice, W.K. Kellogg, California Endowment, TED's Audacious Project, and the Elevate Prize Foundation, Walton Family, Colorado Health, Chan Zuckerberg, the Midyear Network, and USAID. Her work focuses on equitable evaluation for strategic grant making and systems change. And Dr. Sabarre is also an adjunct professor at American University, teaching grad level courses in evaluation approach and design. And she will talk today about her 7 lessons from her 7 years of starting and building her business. And so welcome, Nina, and thank you for today. Nina, you're muted.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that intro, Tom. And thank you, everyone, for being here. As Tom mentioned, my name is Nina Sabarre. I'm the founder and CEO of Intention to Impact, also known as I2I. And today, October 2nd, we are celebrating our 7th year in business. So, to mark the occasion, I wanted to come here and share 7 lessons that I have stood out over the past 7 years. First, a huge caveat that these lessons were really learned in hindsight, oftentimes the hard way. The truth is, there's no single playbook or prescription that will work for everyone. And of course, because businesses don't operate in silos, they interact with a changing field and marketplace and depends heavily on its leaders, unique strengths, experiences, and values. So, what has worked for me might not work for everyone, especially given today's social, political, and economic landscape. But I do hope that some of my experiences, insights will resonate with you all and give you ideas to try, or at least spark some good conversation and brainstorming amongst this group. So whether you're starting and scaling your own business, or even just looking to achieve long-term goals or acting entrepreneurial within an organization, I hope that you gain something from this. And I'll try not to talk for too long. I'm just going to go over the broad strokes of these 7 lessons and then happy to open it up for questions and we can dive back in or talk about anything that people are grappling with. All right. So, number 1, dreaming big requires starting small. When I started Intention to Impact in October 2018, I had dreams of growing a firm that was bigger than myself, with the intentions of creating opportunities for others, influencing the field, and using evaluation to advance a more just and equitable world. But I really couldn't snap my fingers and just do that overnight. I had to start small. So my humble beginning started with subcontracting to other firms, building relationships, honing my skills, and learning about business. A lot of learning as I went, building the plane as they fly it, as they say. And starting small required trust, humility, and honestly, a mix of privilege and luck. But dreaming big kept me grounded and motivated through those early days, and it still does today. Number 2, different stages of business have different priorities. This is something that my previous business coach, Tamara, taught me way back in 2020. She shared with me this framework, originally developed by her business coach and author, Todd Herman, and he describes 5 stages of business. No need to strain your eyes. I'll dive into each of these in the next few slides, and when I'm done sharing screens, I'm happy to pop this link into the chat. So the first stage is startup. You've made the leap to start a business, and you have a good idea of a product or service that you'll be offering, but you're still trying to find the right target audience. Your focus is on refining your products and services and really figuring out what is needed. This stage tends to be riddled with the most fear and self-doubt, and there are way more questions than answers. This is where you really have to lean in with curiosity and be willing to experiment, try different things to test and validate your ideas and offerings. For I2I and for myself, the startup phase looked like first learning the ropes, as I mentioned, subcontracting to other small businesses, saying yes to everything, which was definitely messy and overwhelming at times, but it meant that I got a ton of great experience early on, learning about what lights me up and what doesn't light me up. It meant making a lot of mistakes and figuring out where my skills were really needed. And during this phase, I also had to figure out how to transition from an independent consultant acting more as a freelancer to a business that clients worked with directly. After the startup phase, your offering, target audience, and business model are validated, and it's time to ramp up with marketing and scales. So you've proven that you can do it, and now you have to prove that you can sell it. This is where you start to differentiate your brand and develop a pipeline. For I2I, that looked like launching our brand and website, writing more proposals, hiring subcontractors, refining our approach. And most importantly for me, this is when I brought on a business partner, Kathleen. And I'll talk more about our partnership and Kathleen shortly. So for us, this was around 2021, 2022. Then there's the build-up phase. After you figure out how to bring in sales, it's time to focus on operational systems within your business. There's this realization that what got you here won't get you where you're going. For I2I, build up has looked like finalizing my business partnership with Kathleen and us fully stepping into our roles as CEO and COO. So that means not just doing the work, but also thinking about executive responsibilities. And then building our back office infrastructure. So that means working with attorneys, financial professionals, HR, building our employee handbook. And then eventually, when we were ready, hiring our full-time employees. So that was 22 to 23. And once your systems and infrastructure are solid, you no longer feel like you're on a hamster wheel. You can breathe a little bit better and focus on growth and strategy and developing internal leaders. So this is where I2I is today. We're continuing to grow our team, refining our systems, constantly thinking about how we can better serve our target market. And we're focusing on exceptional company culture that cares for, retains, and attracts the right people, which then, of course, attracts the right opportunities. And we're also always keeping our eyes open, looking for new areas to grow into. So this is where we're at. I would say we started it around 2024. Of course, none of this is really as linear as it sounds. It's a lot of figuring things out, taking one step forward, one step back, two steps forward, that kind of thing. And just like you can't run before you walk, you really can't scale before you start, ramp, and build up. And the last stage in the framework that Todd Herman developed is leader up. This is where you start thinking about your succession plan for your business, your future, your legacy. And I2I is not there yet, and we probably won't be for a long time. But as we get closer to that stage, as we continue to grow and scale, we'll want to be realistic that we won't be around forever, and we owe it to our team and our clients to plan responsibly for the future. So those are the 5 stages of business. Happy to dive in deeper if anyone has more questions about that. Number 3, business is relational. I know many folks on this call can relate to that. That's why we're all here. That's why we're in community together, because this work is not meant to be just transactional. We're not just selling widgets. We're in the business of people and consulting and working together, collaborating. And in every stage of business, relationships are everything. Early on, it was mentors, peers, even support from friends and family. It all really matters. Later, it became consultants and clients who believed in us. And of course, like I mentioned, finding Kathleen as my business partner. And these days, it's our employees, our company culture, our vendors, our advisors who help us sustain and grow the work. At the end of the day, entrepreneurship is really more interdependent than independent. It truly takes a village. And back to our partnership. So business partnerships are really like a marriage. They're built on trust, care, a shared purpose, and commitment. And one of the first things Kathleen and I did was share our own personal dreams, fears, and expectations. It was very vulnerable of an experience. And we had to align on our distinct roles and responsibilities and how we could be complementary to one another. And honestly, just like a marriage, it is legally and financially binding. So it's something to take seriously. We took a long time to finalize our business partnership, and it is 100% worth it. I could have never done what I've done the past 7 years without Kathleen. I think it was the best move that I've made for I2I, because you really don't have to do it alone. I honestly think I couldn't have done it alone. Lesson number four is to know your market. This means understanding the relationship between supply and demand where you work. This is one of the most important lessons about business, but sometimes is the least discussed or understood. On the demand side, you have to know who is actually buying your services. What problems are they facing? What budgets are they working with? And who's making those budget decisions? When I started, I just assumed that demand was simple. If I was doing good work, people would be ready to hire me because why wouldn't they? I'm doing good work. But the demand is not just about need, it's also about a willingness and ability to pay, alignment with priorities, and timing. It's kind of sometimes it's a right place, right time kind of thing, but you have to be prepared for those opportunities. And on the supply side, you need to ask, what are you offering? How are you delivering it? Who else is in the market? What gaps are you filling? Where are you competing? Where are you collaborating? How are trends in the field shaping what other people are looking for? And one of the trickiest lessons that I've learned is that it's really about balance. On one side, there's demand, enough clients and projects to grow the business. On the other side, there's supply, having the right team and capacity to deliver the work well. If you have too much demand and not enough supply, your team gets stretched too thin and burnout sets in and quality suffers. But if you have too much supply, meaning a big team, but not enough projects, then you can't sustain payroll and people feel underutilized. So balancing supply and demand is really about pacing your growth. It means saying yes to enough opportunities to keep momentum while also being intentional about when to hire, when to partner, and when to pause. It's honestly a constant dance. No one gets it right. There's no perfect formula. But the goal is to create a rhythm where the work and team capacity matches enough to keep growing, but not so much that either side breaks. It's like always this constant dance, and at every stage of business, you have to reassess it. But I want to be real for a second about the elephant in the room that this market is not predictable. The truth is, what worked for our business 7 years ago, 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, will not necessarily work today. Demand has shifted, funding priorities have changed, entire budgets have disappeared overnight. I'm sure many of us on this call have felt the reality of that. And for intention to impact, this has meant that we have to rethink our strategy and offerings. Honestly, I think everyone in this moment of time has to do some of that. We can't just pretend that things are stable and we can't be doing business as usual the same way. We have to really look in the mirror and ask, how can we make ourselves more resilient in times of uncertainty? How can we stay relevant when client needs are shifting so quickly while also maintaining our values? How do we build enough flexibility to move back and forth between growth and experimentation as the market changes? I know those are really, really hard questions, and I honestly do not have all the answers. I'm in community with many of you, with other small businesses talking about these things, and we're just doing the best that we can. It often means going back to the stages of business, and like I mentioned before, it's not always linear. You can take a few steps back, take a few steps forward. It's all a dance. But it's all about learning, which is good for us because we're in the business and sector of learning, which leads me to number five. Research and evaluation are smart business strategies. We can practice what we preach, and our organizations will improve because of it. You don't need an MBA to run a business. You can also just take a data-driven and learning approach. I know I leaned on what I know best: monitoring, evaluation, learning, research. We apply MEL concepts for our business at inside of I2I. For example, a theory of change. What are the kind of outcomes we're trying to achieve internally and externally? We collect data on our finances, services, people, and culture. We do annual measurement and reflection cycles. We have feedback loops and advisory input. We operationalize our values and make them real and collect data about the values that we have. So this data-driven approach really grounds our strategy and ensures that we're learning as we grow. And here's an example of our annual measurement and learning cycle. I'm happy to share the slides after if it's helpful, so we don't have to go over every detail, but just wanted to share how we're really intentional about building time for learning. We do at the end of every year a lot of learning and reflection, but then also midpoint after 6 months, and we also set quarterly goals. So there's just a lot of learning built into how we operate. Number six. Oh, sorry. Profit and purpose. You need both to stand in your values. Profit has never been the purpose of I2I. If it was, I would definitely be in the wrong industry. But I strongly believe that profit is necessary to fulfill our purpose. And I know that can feel icky. It's a little taboo to talk about money in a sector driven by social justice and grounded in academia. I know many of us in this room are actively trying to undo the harms of capitalism while also operating businesses that operate within capitalism. And there's a lot of tensions in that. I totally get it, and I feel them all the time. And don't even get me started about the societal norms that have told women that we shouldn't be in it for the money. But honestly, when we're not transparent about the financial necessities needed to grow and scale a business, we not only devalue ourselves and the field, but we also do conform to the capitalist norms that exist to keep businesses like ours small. So I feel real strong about this. And here are some ways that profitability actually helps us live into our values. Over time, building up our margins allows us to be more intentional about the projects, clients, and approaches that we take. We can offer equitable benefits for our team, like flexible schedules, investable wages, 401k matching, wellness, home office, professional development stipends, and 100% healthcare, dental, and vision insurance. We're really proud about what we're able to offer, and we could only do that because we were very smart early on in how we build budgets to be able to increase margins over time. We saved in the beginning to be able to do this now. So it takes a lot of financial strategy, but it also gives us the opportunity to give back. We're not just hoarding resources here. We're fundraising, we're donating, we're participating in mentorship. We have at I2I an annual fundraising and mentorship initiative called Pay Her Forward. And yeah, so these are just some ways that we couldn't do this without profit. And I'm sure everyone's wondering, how did you increase profit? Here are some things that we did over time to increase our profit. Revisiting our hourly rates, reimagining level of effort, which is something that we use to build budgets, to include uncertainty, complexity, and values alignment. So it's not just about billable hours. We develop sliding scale budgets for different types of clients. We seek a balance and a diversity of projects and budgets from small, medium to large. For example, you might have more small dollar repeatable trainings and fewer customized multi-year projects, but having a mix can really help you balance your portfolio. We try our best to develop repeatable processes and templates to build efficiencies. We also use AI to build efficiencies. We build in time for relationship building, which helps us then create repeat clients and strong relationships that last over time, which also lead to faster project startups and efficiencies. We track budgets and learn from them. And this is really important. We work with finance professionals. Honestly, talking about money, it's taken me a really long time to be able to do so because I find it icky and I just cringe when I think about it. But that's why we hire people who know what they're talking about. We have a bookkeeper, a CFO, a tax strategist, and a financial planner, 4 different finance professionals who work in tandem to help us be smart and strategic about our finances so that we can grow sustainably. And last but not least, number 7, self-awareness is a superpower. This last lesson is probably the most personal, but also the most important in my opinion. Running a business is not just about strategy, client, or systems. It's also about you, the leader, the human being behind the work, and all the human beings in your network and in your community. Entrepreneurship is demanding. It brings up all your strengths and also all of your insecurities and shadows. And if you're not doing the inner work, it will show up in your business. For me, self-awareness has been a game changer. This has looked like coaching and therapy to help me navigate leadership challenges and blind spots, breathwork and somatic practices to regulate stress and stay grounded, really knowing myself, like doing assessments, like for the Gallup Strengths Finder, the KAI assessment, even sillier things like Enneagram. These are not just labels, but they can act as mirrors to understand how you work, how you relate to others, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. And I find them really helpful, not just for me, but for my team as well. And lastly, preserving time for joy and rest. Because if you let it, your business can easily consume you, and that is not sustainable. when you know yourself, you can lead authentically, you can attract the right clients, the right team, and the right opportunities because people really gravitate towards that kind of alignment. And for me, authenticity has been the greatest competitive advantage. It's not because it's a marketing strategy, but it's because it's sustainable. When I show up as myself with clarity on what I value, where I'm strong, where I need help, that ripples throughout my whole company and community. And those are the 7 lessons. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here, celebrating 7 years with us. Thank you for supporting I2I over the years. So much of what I've learned has not been by myself in the corner. It's been in community with you all, showing up in this space, other spaces. So thank you all so much for being part of this journey and open for questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Nina.